everyone. This is Michelle Gramoglia, the president and CEO here at Woodland Pond, and this is my weekly address for a Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. I'd like to start by just letting everyone know, you probably have already realized this because of the snow, but there will be no Tuesday shopping today. And for those that think, oh, we usually shop on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we also do shopping in New Paltz on Tuesdays because there are certain locations that offer a senior discount. However, more snow has come down than we expected, more quickly than we expected, and the safest thing is to cancel non-medically necessary transportation. So there will be normal shopping tomorrow and on Saturday. We have a bunch of things from the rumor mill and suggestion box, which I will get to in a moment. But before I do that, why don't I touch a little bit just on snow and some of the emergency expectations. If you are on email, yesterday you would have gotten an email from me that let you know, actually I think it came from Lindsay on Constant Contact, but the message was from me, letting our email users know that the emergency alert system that we usually utilize, which is, you'll see it come up from SARA, SARA, emergency alerts, or Woodland Pond emergency alerts on your caller ID or on your email or on your text. That's what we've historically used for several years to get emergency alerts out to our residents, staff, and any loved ones that have signed up for our alerts. About a month ago, the service provider that provides that service, which is called Status Solutions, notified all of its customers worldwide that its messaging service, the emergency messaging in particular, is compromised, and they still have not been able to recover that service. We have since begun looking for an alternative service provider because being able to send out a variety of different types of emergency messages is extremely critical in order for keeping you informed. But for right now, we're in between. We haven't cut ties with Status Solutions. We are hopeful that program will become available to us again. But in the meantime, we can't put our head in the sand, and we're evaluating other options. What that means is that when we have emergency information that we need to get to you, it's going to be a little bit more disjointed. And our team is discussing, how do we really do this adequately? For email users, we can certainly send an email, but unless you get email alerts on your phone or your device and you have them all the time, it's not going to be real-time information. Because we don't have the alert system right now, we don't have the ability to do a mass phone call notification. And not everyone here uses their cell phones and text anyway. We do have channel 1340, and we're looking at ways right now to use Connected Living, which is on the screens and on your TVs and some of your phones, to be able to send out communication. But again, that's going to require that you're looking actively for those things. And then the last, of course, is to put, a paper announcement at concierge or in the mailroom, which is sort of the old analog way that we would get information out. So right now we're kind of working through some options, and none of them are as ideal as having immediate emergency alert access. But I wanted to assure you we are working on that. That being said, we are in a temporary snow removal protocol that is specifically related to construction, and more specifically related to parking impacts of construction. So our normal protocols for snow removal would be that the snow removal begins on sidewalks and roadways by our parking vendor and our staff when a snowstorm begins, and continues throughout. And then and we have certain parking lots that you can use, and that's a standard protocol that we have. We put the maps out, remind residents where they can park, etc. We're doing the same thing in a way, but one of the things that's different is because we already had certain parking lots offline for staff, we have to accommodate for allowing spaces for the plows to be able to plow and also to put snow, and then also allow for our staff to come in. So if you saw my email yesterday in Constant Contact, you saw there were several different pressure release valves, so to speak, in terms of how we can reduce the impacts of pressure on parking during a snowstorm. We provided a variety of options to staff to either work from home, carpool with a financial incentive to do so, come in a little bit earlier or park in different locations. And we did ask any residents that did not need their vehicle from yesterday until Thursday morning if you would allow us to move your car to an outer lot. And several of you did that. And that made a huge difference in terms of us being able to free up parking adequately to be able to plow so that we always have places to rotate cars through that's plowed, and also to allow parking for staff. And as a matter of fact, right now, I just checked with Tom. That's why I was a minute late for the update. We have roughly 20 parking spots available in lot 4 right now, which is fantastic. And that's with having a lot of the health center completely offline for plowing and allowing for the staff that have come in to find parking and be here at work. So we really appreciate this. We will be taking feedback. I will encourage everyone to remember we instituted not only our standard grievance policy that has been in place since July, which is formalized, but we are accepting construction-related grievance questions specifically so that we can address those sort of with a different team. General grievances would go with the exec team or the health center team, and then construction-related would be more so with Dave Roberts folks and operations and so forth. So still always looking for that feedback. One of the important things to keep in mind here is that we do not clear cars during snowstorms until the storm is done. If you do need your vehicle and you need it to be cleared, please call concierge with at least an hour or two's notice, especially if it's off hours. Because you never know how many need their car at one time, and we need a little bit of advance notice to be able to do that. If you have any concerns, if you see anything that needs to be attended to from a safety perspective, weather related, non-weather related, please put in a work order immediately with concierge. Please do not assume that someone else has seen it. It's better for us to get 5 work orders on one issue. Your eyes and ears are all over the place, and there are thousands of them, and we need those. So please do get your work orders in if there's anything that we can help with that you have personally observed. Okay, now on to some other things. We are going to be holding our annual free store, which for those that are newer to Woodland Pond is in addition to the free stores that are held when a resident moves from one location to another, if the family chooses to do so. We do have an annual free store, which we put in a central location, and it allows residents, families, and staff to donate gently used items that you no longer have a use for into our employee holiday free store. And this idea came many, many years ago. I would say closer to a dozen at this point. And a couple of us had young children and then realized, a lot of these toys that the kids have that they've grown out of, they still have life left in them. And I really personally can't stand yard sailing. But I knew that there were other staff members here that were going to be starting families and so forth. So I had the idea, along with a few of my colleagues in the same boat, to bring our items together, our gently used items, and then just make them available for other staff in a free store. And that's how the free stores came to be. And we always did them around the holidays, try to give people an option to put things under the tree or for Hanukkah or whatever holiday gifts that didn't necessarily have to have a price tag on them, but still had life in them and that their children could enjoy. And then that expanded into all kinds of house goods. And it really became a nice way for us to move items, gently used items between families, between households, and not put things into the trash stream. So that's what we're doing now. So if you are a resident, a loved one, or a staff member that has any gently used items in your home, books, pots and pans, a piece of furniture, whatever, tools, yard supplies that you have no more use for, we will take them and then we will make sure everything is organized and we will make them available in our free store. The free store is going to be held next week from the 9th to the 12th, which I think is Tuesday to Friday. So we will be collecting items at concierge all the way up through those dates. So if you have any items at all that you look around your place and you say, oh, I'm never going to use these light bulbs again, or why do I have Christmas lights? I'm not going to hang up Christmas lights anymore. I don't even have an outside patio anymore, whatever the case may be. Anything like that, I can assure you, if you get it into our hands, we will make sure it gets into the hands of an employee that would be so grateful for that swapped item. So again, you can bring any item to concierge. The only thing that we don't typically take is bed pillows, just from a health and safety perspective, but typically everything else we will take. And if we can't find a home for it, we will make sure that it gets to one of the local resources so that they stay out of the waste stream. All right, I'm going to move into rumor mill and suggestion box. And as always, it is definitely feast or famine. We had gone through, I think, 3 or 4 weeks where there was literally nothing in those boxes. And today we have a handful, maybe because I wasn't here last week. So we'll go through them. So the first is, my suggestion is having a naming raffle at the craft fair where the winner gets to name some part of the renovation. And this is on the original form, and it asks who will it benefit, and it says all of us. And this just came in, so I haven't had a chance to really give it too much thought. I think the person's referring to adding it to one of the raffles at the Arts and Crafts Fair. And I'm going to give it some thought and talk it over with my team. The reason that I'm hesitating is because we haven't seen a huge number of even those that have committed to a donation to wanting to have naming rights. It's an interesting social, I don't want to say exercise because we're actually going through it, but it's an interesting social evaluation. Certain populations, certain individuals are excited about having the opportunity to have their name on something. We're actually not seeing a huge number of donors, folks that are interested in having their names on, the PAC or those opportunities. And we typically don't see a lot of that with the, even with the memorial benches. I think maybe we have 2 or 3 dozen of those altogether. So I'm going to continue to think it over. I think it's a creative idea, and who knows, maybe we'll see a raffle added in at the Arts and Crafts Fair this weekend for a naming opportunity. The next item is similarly related to renovations, and it's kind of hard to see, but I always love it when I get a diagram. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but this is a diagram that someone drew. And what it says is many residents would love to have an artistic sketch of the proposed demolition, building, and additions like this. And so they drew a box, and there's W's for where the windows would go. And then it says extension in the middle, and then a wall down, etc. Any proposed window types, flooring, lighting, etc. So we did order architectural renderings for the Performing Arts Center. And that's something that you typically do. And any time that you're going to do some sort of a capital campaign or a large scale publicly funded or privately funded or grant funded project, so that you can really give someone the visual of what they can expect that space to look like. They're very expensive. Each is roughly $2,500. And in that case, this was in hopes of motivating and exciting people about supporting the capital campaign. For the other areas that we're doing, we're not seeking any support. And sort of there's a cost benefit analysis with having those renderings ordered because they're done by the architect, they are done to scale and fully rendered. I have asked Dave Roberts, he may have responded to me, but I've been in a meeting since I read this morning, how many renderings we're still expecting from the architect, if any, which ones, if any, and when we expect them. I will get additional information out on this specifically to you when I know, and I'm sure Dave will let me know today or tomorrow. Separately and aside, I'm going to do a timeout on the rumors and suggestions because this just occurred to me that I want to mention something that came up yesterday. So yesterday I came in to the office after having been out since last Monday. So I was out of the office for the Thanksgiving holiday from Tuesday until Monday. And I didn't think, a lot would go on. But when I walked in, I ended up finding out that there were several opportunities identified by our construction manager to accelerate some of our timeframes on the construction schedule. And to us, that's very exciting. We understand and are really feeling it viscerally that this design and build team understands the importance to our community of expediting construction and getting everything done as quickly as we possibly can to specification. And so on one hand, I was very excited to hear that. On the other hand, that ends up having a ripple effect on a lot of things. And so it becomes a real balance. And this is what we're going to be working with today and tomorrow to really set the tone for our design team. Because on one hand, we want them to have the leeway and the autonomy to be able to work with their subcontractors to change the plans and the ordering and the phasing such that the overall project can be reduced in terms of time frame, but also in keeping that it's very difficult in some cases to adjust on the fly. Certainly if we have outside programs or outside plans or holidays or other things that are riding on the plans that we've made, and then if the construction manager suggests that we accelerate X, Y, and Z, we need to be mindful of the fact that that may then have a ripple effect. And this is just growing pains. We are working really well together. The team is doing a fantastic job. They are hearing what we're saying about wanting to meet the resident desire to expedite construction. So we have to be careful about putting too many rigid structures on what they can do in terms of schedule, but also being mindful of the fact that we have an operating community and people need a little bit of time to get used to change and have to have a mechanism for understanding when these things change. So we're continuing to work through that. We have a special meeting scheduled tomorrow with a subset of the design team to, again, address the schedule and then walk away with an expectation of how are we going to regularly communicate every day with residents of what they can expect and where they can find that information. Because the other thing that we're seeing simultaneously is that there's a huge grapevine of information that's happening, and that is really detrimental to people's ability to understand what's going on. So we really want to, our goal is to give you one source to find the actual facts, so there's not speculation, that there's not rumors going around, so that you know exactly where to look, exactly who to go to, exactly what the game plan is, the roadmap. So by the end of this week, it's our goal to have the updated schedule as best we can completed, and then be able to communicate with you where to find that information always going forward. Okay, back to rumor mill and suggestion box. This says it was reported that Woodland Pond had purchased an electric maintenance cart. However, I never see anyone riding in it. The landscaping and maintenance staff continue to ride from 7:15 a.m. all day long on Woodland Pond's very loud cart that spews pollution into the air. And why is that? So this is partially correct and partially a mistake. So we did replace our golf cart, which is electric. So we had had a utility golf cart for many, many years. Some of you will remember that we delivered meals out to the cottages during COVID in its back bay area, but its batteries ultimately gave out, and to the point that they couldn't be replaced. So we made the decision this year to replace that golf cart, which we have done. And we upgraded it. That does not completely supplant what the Gator, which is the green vehicle, can do. battery powered machines or vehicles do not have the same capabilities as electric vehicles. And that's just a reality. And that's one of the issues that there is some concern about a push to migrate all vehicles of all kinds to electric because they don't have the same towing capacity. They don't have the same longevity, and oftentimes they don't have the same off-road capabilities. And that's the case in our situation. When you're seeing our maintenance staff out and about, most likely they're doing grounds work or maintenance work, and that requires off-road capability. And the golf carts don't offer that in the same way. They can't do rugged terrain. They can't hold the same weight of material. And so sometimes we have no choice but to use the gator. So we will continue to do that to get the work done around campus. And I have reminded Tom to remind our housekeeping and maintenance staff that if they're just using a vehicle to get from one point A to point B on asphalt, that they should be using the golf cart and not the gator. And the gator should be reserved for gator work only. This says many Woodland Pond residents have passed away and management has done nothing to honor them except put a flyer in the mailroom. However, the management is hosting a big event for Dick Barry's passing, led by the CEO, with refreshments provided by Woodland Pond. This seems unfair to the memories of the many other deceased residents. I had several reactions to this, and I actually saw this last week, and I'm glad that I slept on it. And so I've decided that we will use this as sort of a learning opportunity. Woodland Pond has never hosted, including with Dick Barry's, a time of remembrance as Woodland Pond per se. I personally took the lead on organizing Dick Barry's time of remembrance because Dick and I had a close personal relationship and he has no family. Woodland Pond 100% had become Dick's family. And for those that know Dick, he was very, very vocal about that. So when someone does not have a family, not only whether I'm close with that resident or not, I would step in an instant if someone did not have a family to bring a celebration of life for them. You all deserve it, but I would never overstep a family's bounds. In this case, there were many residents that came forth without being asked, asking if we were going to do a celebration of life for Dick. We were able to ultimately put together a lovely agenda based on those residents that had come forth. We ultimately did ask if there was anyone else that wanted to be included in the agenda, and then we opened it up casually, as we do with every celebration of life. So while this may have seemed somehow more heavily orchestrated by Woodland Pond, for some reason out of favoritism or whatever this resident is suggesting, but this was done by me personally as a reflection on the fact that Dick had no family to do this for him. He ultimately did have one couple that flew in from Florida that had known him for a long time but would not have been able to do this, not family but friends, and then another couple locally. But the rest of the vast majority of those people, with the exception of some of our board members that attended that celebration of life, were residents that had become Dick's family. So I'm sorry if this left a bad taste in your mouth, but in anybody in that circumstance, I would be absolutely honored to step in and put a program together that honors your life. This one says, will residents be able to read the comments written by other residents on the recent Woodland Pond satisfaction survey? The answer is yes, eventually, to the extent appropriate. There are thousands of comments, and I have not even had the chance to get through them myself. I believe that on my last address, I indicated that I had distributed the thousands of comments to my executive team and asked them to go through and look for themes or certain low-hanging fruit, and by this Friday, give me response plans to their 5 selected items, just to kind of get a start on some of the opportunities that we have in those comments. Thousands of comments is too many to read. I also am struggling with wanting to not edit or inadvertently eliminate your ability to see some of these comments. Part of the issue is that some of them name names, some of them have suggested personnel implications. Some of them talk about other residents by name. So I can't just blanketly put the comments forth. So we got a great turnout, but I do have to somewhat be selective in terms of what we issue. So I'm working through that right now. But the long story short is, at a minimum, you will get the full survey results in terms of the actual outcomes and the rankings. And then you will get absolutely the executive team game plan by department as to their selected first 5 items to work on and our response plan. And then we will go from there. I sat at Josie's USO show thinking how lucky I am to live in a place where my talented neighbors make me laugh and entertain me so beautifully. I am looking forward to the new pack when all residents can fit inside. And I appreciate this comment. You are not the first that has let me know that, and I agree. This says, we do not encourage residents to use the comfortable lobby area. It might be a marketing plus to see people reading, having conversations, writing letters, etc. as they enter Woodland Pond. It is an underused space. I couldn't agree more. I am always surprised that there are not more residents sitting and spending time in the lobby. And I will tell you that this has been a large part of the discussion with the interior design firm in terms of selecting the finishes and the furniture for the renovated pack, and also how those seating areas are actually planned. Because one of the things that we have deduced through our resident focus groups and copious discussions with our design team, which is expert in senior living, is that the way that our lobby right now is currently designed and the furniture that we have is really not conducive to conversations by our resident population. So there's things related to sound, there's things related to the ability to easily get in and out of seating. Large couches like that are really difficult for people as they get older. And so there's just some inherent design challenges that I think create a barrier to people really enjoying that space. And so we have looked in the design for the new lobby to eliminate those barriers, because I think that our lobby should be a hub of conversation and companionship. So we are hoping to accomplish that goal, and I think that you will be excited about the outcome. The next, I think, is tongue in cheek. It says they are not working today because the whole job may yet be called off. I can assure you the job will not be yet called off, and I think they're still out there working despite the snow. 2 more comments. This one's a quote, and I appreciate it. This is really perfect for Woodland Pond. It says, there are no strangers here, only friends that you haven't met yet. And it's by William Butler Yeats. So quotes are always welcome. The last item is lengthy. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but to make a very long story short, it's a resident questioning the applicability of our pet policy to staff. Some of you have seen that several of our staff members have pets and do bring them to work from time to time. And this prompted me to look at our pet policy to determine exactly how this would be applicable to staff. And it's very clear in our pet policy that pets are only welcome in common areas to get from point A to point B. And it's very specific as to where pets are not allowed and so forth. There's nothing explicit in the current pet policy that says that pets can't be in offices. This person was questioning the applicability of that. It's something to think about. We do have staff members that get new pets or have pets, and we've never had issues with that. We typically always see the pets in that person's personal office. People without offices typically would never have a pet on campus unless it was a therapy pet visit or something like that. But I have spoken with all of our staff members that do have pets that they bring to campus sometimes, and reiterated that they're specifically disallowed in certain areas according to the pet policy. The requirements to make sure that they are on leash, basically just reiterating that the pet policy as it's written should absolutely be applied to staff just as much as residents, but just a reflection on the fact that we do not have an abject prohibition from staff members having pets. I thank everyone for their feedback. This is, I think, the longest address we've had in quite a while. It's wonderful to be able to interact, and I will see you all soon.